How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Speaking the Bare Truth. As you know, my name is Jayden. Right next to me, I have Nik. How are we doing today?
Good. I'm doing well.
Just as...
The school bell
Yep,
rings.
the school bell rings just as we start recording. Isn't that always nice? But yeah, you're doing well today?
Yeah, doing well. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jayden. I'm looking forward to this discussion we're having
Yeah,
today.
absolutely. You know, I thought it was a really good discussion. You know, I've been getting, it's been mentioned a couple of times during filming when I've been filming the creators process. So I thought, let's actually dig in deeper. Like, I feel like this is such a big topic that I personally feel strongly about. And, a lot of artists that we even know that feel strongly about. And, obviously for our viewers that are obviously listening, you've already can see the title, but we'll mention it now. The topic is about, supporting fellow artists, the support of the community, and also how important and the impact that it has in the community when you actually support people. And like, I think, for me personally, like, I've sometimes come across like, people who are not willing to support others. And, for me, like, I think it's just such an important aspect. And, like, I think we were even talking last night, because we were at a life drawing session and we were talking about competitiveness. There's two different types of competitiveness. There's like, obviously the healthy type, but then there's also the negative, which ends up being, you end up taking personal shots at each other, and then, it gets really out of hand, and you end up just damaging each other's reputation, and it's just unnecessary, competitiveness. And I think
in a negative way, I think competitiveness can be positive when two people come together and they kind of push each other to kind of experiment or strive or collaborate or do something they might not have done if they hadn't met that other person. So exactly. It can be a positive thing, but I agree, like, competitiveness can be vindictive, it can be negative and can tear others down. So
that's it.
Try to avoid that if possible.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't even remember back in 2018 when I decided to start doing fine art photography. Like, the photography community, when I started off, like, when I was messaging people, like, I barely got any messages back because, it was like there was a bit of competitiveness going, like, oh, I don't want to, help you and all that sort of thing. But it's like, now I'm at the point where, it's now 2021, where I've now been doing photography for a bit longer. Like, I've had people messaging me, ask me, hey, I'll really enjoy what you do, could you give me some advice to this? I'm like, yeah, sure. And like,
let's give him back.
And like, I don't know about you, but like, when you have someone who takes the time to message you and asks you saying, I really love what you do, could you give me advice on like how I can get to a point where like I can be like doing your stuff, I find that very flattering. That like, because they could. Yeah, because like they could have asked anyone at the end of the day, and so for me, I'm like, you know what, I want to give this
time to
message this person, and sometimes I've even like had a time where I've met up with them for a coffee, because I'm just like, you're
mentoring, you're providing. I'm sure there's people in your life that you consider mentors that you look up to, and if someone's coming to you to ask questions, they're looking for a mentor. So I think that's wonderful. I don't think everyone in the art community wants to be a mentor, wants to give time to others, but I think I have a lot of time for people that do give time to others. I guess at the start of this episode, we've decided to sort of talk on a personal level.
Absolutely.
People that we respect. I have a lot of people I respect that I've known for quite a long time, and probably I'll start by talking about Lily.
Yes.
I've known Lily since I think about 2004 when we were at uni together. I think that was when we met. We were in the same course in 2003, but I think our paths hadn't crossed because I was sort of doing night classes most of the time that year, and she was probably studying during the day. But I'm so thankful the day I met her, and I remember the day. She was at the back of the class painting her, beautiful characters that she paints with some watercolors, I think, or she had some paints like laid out, and she was so focused on what she was doing, and I just saw her and I thought, I want to be friends with that person. And I'm so glad a mutual friend, Kelly, introduced us, and I thank the day that happened, because
Yeah.
she is a huge inspiration, and our friendship is based on supporting each other. We are each other's best, fans. Like, we're, there's never been a moment that I've thought, oh my God, I'm so jealous of what Lily's doing, and I want to tear her down. I just have I'm her biggest fan. I want to raise her up, and I know She does the same thing for me as well. So that's to me, that's what supporting each other is all about. You're there to champion each other when you're going through a tough time. You're there to also support each other as well. And that's what our community can do when it's at its best, I guess. Thinking about people that create community, we can think of our mutual friend JL. Jean-Luc is amazing. So Top Secret Life Drawing is his baby, and Gay Life Drawing as well.
Yes. And
he is such an inspiration. I met him Lily and I met him at Dr. Sketchy's probably maybe over 10 years ago now, I think, or something like that. And I remember seeing, he was always so lovely whenever we chatted, and it's really only been the last few years that we've become really close friends. Yeah. I think someone like JL, who he has time for everybody.
Yes.
For the models, he's so thoughtful in the way he works with models. He's very thoughtful in the way he encourages people in his in his workshops that are maybe new to life drawing, or they're experienced artists. He gives everyone equal time and support, and I just have so much respect for that. And he also shares their work, which is hugely beneficial, because sharing someone's work, like I think before, JL started sharing my work, and I was so amazed. Like, I never really had anyone do that really before, and it really he encouraged me so much. And my drawing has really grown in the last couple of years. I haven't missed a life drawing session. I think I missed maybe one or two in like 3 years probably. And they're weekly sessions that JL runs, which I have so much respect for. Even through lockdown and everything. But the fact he has encouraged me so much, and my art has grown from his support. So I just want to say thank you, JL, if you're listening.
Oh, absolutely.
We love you.
I think I definitely agree with you with absolutely everything you said. Like, I think one of the things that Jean-Luc does is that he makes time, and he's open to always new ideas and new people coming in. Like, he, as you said, he welcomes them with open arms, because even for me, looking through the life drawing community, as I model myself, there are sometimes those groups that you come across where they're not open to, like, for one example, like, they're not open to having male models there, or
that's
they're
interesting.
So they're not very welcoming towards, and so I love that with Jean-Luc. He's like, no, let's get more, plus size models. Let's get more
diversity in that kind of models.
Diversity and I think that's amazing. And I think there should be definitely a lot more groups where that should be more accepting like that. Like, I actually had my friend Laura. If you're listening, Laura, thank you for this. Because I was having a conversation with her, and relating back to my photography, where I've had some people come up to me saying, I think one of the biggest compliments I had from someone who said that they loved following my work because of the amount of diversity in the models that I use. And I'm like, well, it's because I think for me, I want to show that everyone is welcome, and everyone can be a model, and it does, and
we love
like
all body types,
and Laura tagged me in a post where another photographer in Perth was saying the exact same thing, saying that there's so many amazing plus size models and different diverse models,
people with different backgrounds as well. We should be age groups as well, because you can. It's not just one body type, one age, we want to be diverse and inclusive.
Absolutely. And, there are so many, like, gifted models who are, like, I've worked with that are, like, over 50 years old, and even,
and they've been working as models for a long time, or they might be new to it, or...
Exactly. And, I think there's just so many incredible people that, like, we definitely should be showing support to. And, like, I think I love that when I come across classes like, as you said, with Jean-Luc, who is all for including everyone, and
And body positivity as well.
Yeah.
Because you'll go to some life drawing sessions where you feel like they're looking for only one body type and
absolutely,
and one look, and it's sort of it. As an artist, I get so inspired by seeing all body types, because I think, you know, to have the confidence to model I have utmost respect for models. I really do. But anyone that can get up and just be like 100% this is me, and sharing it with the world, and it makes me feel like my body type might be okay to be up on that, you know, in front of those artists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It makes artists feel like they're being represented in the different shapes that they're seeing, you know, the different age groups. We need to celebrate all humanity in the way that we're working.
But like, I think for me, definitely as a photographer, one of the biggest compliments that I can get is when I have, like, because I've had requests of people who have never modeled in their whole life, but they've been like, you know, this is something that I want to do, but, you know, I feel comfortable with what you do to, you know, and I think that's one of the biggest compliments really that I get, you know, and I think, like, that means a lot, because, you know, that shows that, you know, that impact of going, you know, this is, you know, anyone can do this, you know, it's like, you're not
creating
just
a safe space for them too.
Exactly.
Because it's scary, like, to think about, not everyone, you know, people might think, you know, consider being a model, but you might not want to work with every photographer, because you need to feel it needs to be a trust, like a confidence to do that work together as well, and to have that, you know, to actually get in front of a camera. I started photography when I was in high school, and I remember I was living in Brisbane at the time, and I contacted the Brisbane Life Modelling Society, I think it was, or whatever it was called, and I was in high school, and I said I'd like to hire a model to come to my house, and I have this project I'm doing, it's a photography project for school, and I explained, and they said yes. So they sent a model. I remember her name, Mercedes was her name. If you're listening, get in touch, because I'd really love to hear from you, Mercedes, because she had a huge impact on me. I worked with her I think twice, and then I saw her at school, because she was a life model and came to my school, and she's like, oh, hi Nicole, and all the kids are looking at me like, huh? Because I'd already hired her, so I knew her, and she was so cool. I remember she got up and she had her headphones on, and she was listening to her like Walkman, because this was like the 90s.
Oh wow.
The 90s, and I just thought she was so cool, and everyone was like, wow, she was a really professional model. Yeah. And she came to my house, and we did some work in the pool. I did some underwater photography of her in the pool. And she was so respectful, and I sort of said, it was really weird, I accidentally took almost pornographic photos of her underwater, because I couldn't look through the focus finder. So I was trying to look through and take photos of her, but she really trusted me and knew that I wouldn't do the wrong thing. So I ended up developing the photos, the beautiful underwater colour photos, and I kind of I accidentally took some pornographic shots, which I didn't mean to take. Yeah. It was literally because I was trying to look through the focus finder and couldn't see, so I had to just sort of shoot. I was sort of had frames, like I'd actually done some drawings of what I wanted to achieve in the shoot. Anyway, so she had utmost respect, and she had talked to me in trust, and I had utmost respect and trust of her. She said to me, you know, this is how much it will cost to work together. If you decide to exhibit any of the work, you need to talk to me about it first. Yeah. And we had a real grown-up discussion, and I was only, in high school. I was only a teenager, and I never worked with anyone. And I learned so much from that interaction about how you support each other and work together in a respectful way. Because she was very professional in the way she worked, and I learned from her. So Mercedes, I hope you're listening. I'd love to get in contact with you, because the works that we did in that time, I still look back at them, and I'm still proud of them. I think they're beautiful pieces that I just would love to hear more of. What I would like to hear about is, and hopefully people can add this in the comments, and sort of any experiences that you've had of mentoring.
Oh, absolutely.
Or also there's the whole idea of having. There's often you'll have someone that becomes like someone that you want to work with constantly, because they are so professional in the way they work, and that's where you feel like you can build those bonds over a period of time. I think, because Jayden, you came up with this kind of idea for today's discussion around supporting our fellow artists and creative people. I think it's such a cool topic, and it made me immediately think about like people in history that have supported each other, like artists over in time.
Yeah.
And so I started having a look at it, because the first person I thought about was Paul Gauguin and Vincent van Gogh, because from high school, I remember they've got their friendship, or their kind of almost dysfunctional friendship is famous for what happened to, it culminated in, I think they spent 63 days together, and then Vincent cut his ear off because Paul Gauguin said he was going to leave. And I don't blame Paul Gauguin for saying he was going to leave, because Vincent had a razor and kind of threatened him with it.
Yeah.
And then basically Paul Gauguin said, I'm not staying, because they were living together. And he's like, I'm not staying with you tonight. I don't feel safe, probably. Yeah. So he went to a hotel, stayed there overnight, came back home and found Vincent in a pool of blood in his bed, just covered in blood. And it's amazing that Vincent didn't die. We know what tragically happened to Vincent. He ended up, shooting himself in the stomach, and he died, sadly. He had such a tragic life.
A very troubled man,
He was very troubled. I was reading... it was really interesting because, we know a lot about Vincent because he wrote letters to his brother Theo.
Yes.
And I just want to talk about this because I think this is really interesting. Like, I think friendships between creative people can be very passionate and intense and sometimes destructive. But yeah, so Vincent wrote to Theo that our arguments are terribly electric. We come out of them sometimes with our heads as exhausted as an electric battery after it is just discharged. I just thought that was amazing.
Just the way he describes it is very interesting. Like, it's a very interesting way to describe and depict the relationship.
They disagreed. They appreciated and respected each other's work, their art, but they also disagreed about art. And I think Vincent was desperate to start his own community. And
you said that, yeah.
So Paul Gauguin, we were talking about this before we started recording, like Paul Gauguin gave some of his paintings to Theo for money and then went to stay with Vincent. Vincent was hoping he would stay for a year, and it ended up Gauguin was he thought in his mind, I'll probably stay for 6 months and then I'll go back to the tropics. It ended up they stayed together 63 days. Can you imagine those 63 days? It's quite like for people that follow art history, it's quite a famous relationship. But it's also, it's kind of sad. There's a painting that Gauguin did a painting of Van Gogh called Van Gogh Painting Sunflowers 1888.
Painting the most iconic Van Gogh artwork.
Yeah, it's an iconic depiction of Van Gogh, and Paul Gauguin, and I think Paul Gauguin has really depicted him in,
I can see that, yeah.
We'll make sure to sort of share the image, but it's interesting because I think Gauguin saw the painting. He said, "I look mad in this painting." It was almost like he was, obviously we know what happened. He did become, sadly, he did become mad, unfortunately. It's really sad thinking about that relationship. But anyway, I was just thinking about all of those relationships through history of artists that have, there's many of them, like many. I think artists are attracted to spend time with other artists. They want to be around other creative people because you can understand each other on a level that other people can't really understand you.
Even for me, like when I think about it, from my own experience, and I think, Nik, you could probably even say the same thing as well. Obviously I do have a lot of friends outside the art community that obviously I hang out with, but sometimes, I feel like I can't really talk to them as much because I don't think they really get it, especially, I have a couple of guy mates that, kind of look at me and go like, oh, you take, photos of nude women and all that sort of thing. And, they're very immature about it and they don't really get the artistic, the artistic style. And so that's why, I'm glad that, I have friends like yourself and, like John Luke who really I connect with, because, you know, we're all artists, you know, we all get it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's such
it's an unspoken language in a way.
Exactly, you know, and it's like, I think that's why it's definitely very important that we have those relationships and support each other. And, you know, like, you know, as you said, competitiveness is okay, you know, if it's like the healthy type, you know, where we're encouraging each other. But then if it gets to the point where, it's
destructive.
Then that's
like
when...
Vincent van Gogh and Paul
yeah, because that sounds like a very dysfunctional relationship right there. Like, I think it's so important that we have those
healthy, competitive.
Yeah.
Like, also, like, being around other creative people can be inspiring.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
you know, like life drawing, you're literally drawing together, and I find it so inspiring to be in a room with other people drawing, and the energy is palpable in the space. And that inspires me to do more. Like, if I was alone, it doesn't mean I couldn't feel so as inspired being alone and creating something, but being with others, it's electric. It's something that makes you want to create.
Yeah, like, I mean, one of the events that John Luke did, where it was the Anzac dedication, like, I really loved that event so much that I actually approached the person who was the model on that day.
Alison.
Yeah, Alison, yeah. And I said, hey, look, I've always wanted to do an Anzac dedication photo shoot, so can we... Yeah, and we're going to be... Hopefully in the next couple of months we'll be making that happen, because, fantastic. You know... But you know what I mean? Like, it's like... It's good to be around those people that encourage you to go, or that just inspire you, because, you know, like, I always love seeing works that other fellow creatives create, because, you know, like, as you said, sometimes can really inspire you to go, oh, how did, you know, that's so cool. Like, I really would love to do, I guess, in a way, obviously you don't want to outright copy their work, but you want to, like, create a different variation and all that sort of thing. Or, like, you know, like, you want to do something that, that, you know, your own...
That
style.
you're an interpreter. The thing is, like, I think artists can influence each other, like, being around,
absolutely.
you know, in a good way. Like, I think there's, you know, a long history of art movements where, you know, we've spoken about the Surrealists and how they collaborated and worked together. And they would have inspired each other. Like, you know, you would see an artist do something or experimenting, and it might ignite an idea in your own mind, you know, that wouldn't have happened unless you were in the space of other artists. So I think that's it, collectives of art, you know, this is a thing that is, like, time immemorial. It's something, you know, I was thinking, you know, talking about this topic, it made me think closer to home, thinking about the Heide Circle.
Yes.
Which is not far from here. You know, now the Heide Museum of Modern Art, which I love going to visit. And
yeah, I don't think I've been there, actually. I need to check that out.
You'll love it.
Definitely
honestly.
need to check that out to support some really great local artists, like Australian, because they're all Australian artists, yeah?
It's basically the museum does have, you know, temporary or travelling exhibitions that come from overseas, but they also exhibit work of Australian artists and local artists. And, you know, thinking about the Heide Circle, it's really, like, again, it's a well-known story in Melbourne for people that are in the art circle or know anything about art, but I'll just say a little bit in case you don't know this story. So John and Sunday Reed, they purchased the house that they called Heide. It was a property and a dairy farm, and it was all this land. And it's amazing. They purchased the building in 1934, and they wanted to attract artists and writers and creative people to this space. They wanted to create this space. They actually they really inspired a whole group of artists to come together. So this was in the 1930s, 40s and 50s. So artists that were well known, like Albert Tucker, Sidney, Nolan, Joy Hester. And it's really fascinating. Their lives became intertwined on a personal level as well as creatively. So, you know, Sunday Reed famously had affairs with many of these artists and artists within the group. You know, it was like a big friendship group, and as well as being a collective group of artists. I mean, John Reed was aware of Sunday's. It was more, rather than, I don't know if they were affairs or maybe they had an open marriage. I don't, I should read more about this.
Yeah,
there's lots of books that have been written about it. I tend to I do love reading about artists, like biographies and things, but I tend to sort of focus on their work rather than their life,
absolutely.
But I am interested in their life as well.
Oh no, yeah.
But yeah, the Heide circle is really interesting, and when you go there, it's wonderful that the space has become a museum of art. And when you visit, I find it inspiring just thinking about those people that came together, and then thinking that I'm part of a community now in Melbourne. I know quite a few artists. I've made lots of friends through life drawing. It inspires me, and it makes me want to, art isn't the thing that I do every day. It's not my day job, but I want to spend more time. It's such a fulfilling thing to be around artists, and it's so inspiring to follow them online and seeing what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And it makes me want to create more, basically. It's a positive thing. For me, I never feel jealous when I see someone doing something amazing. I just think I'm so inspired by what they're doing. That's the way I see it.
Yeah,
I know some people might feel
absolutely.
Jealousy might come into your mind a little bit, but I never do. But maybe because I'm always trying to do better. I'm thinking of my friend Loopy Dave. I hope you're listening, Loopy Dave. You are such an inspiration. He is uber talented and so modest about his talent. And I just think, and I love that he also teaches. So he has been teaching as well. And he's sharing his techniques and showing others,
Absolutely.
like how like you said before, if someone comes to you and goes, how do you do that? Like, he does this amazing digital illustrations, which blow my mind. I just think, how do you do that?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would ever do it myself, but I have utmost admiration for what he does as an artist.
Yeah.
I just think, wow. And he's been doing it for a long time. And he's willing to share those things that he's learned with others. I think I have so much respect for, and in that way he's supporting fellow artists and young people emerging as well, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, well, I mean, back from when we did our podcast episode with Jenny, where, and now, to be honest, I've actually been using this as well for the creative process. So thank you for this, Jenny, where she pretty much said that, once the conversation stops, it doesn't continue, and that's where it stops. And, when, for us talking more about it, and spreading the information, sharing
what we know. Because
Yeah.
what she was talking about is, and this is the thing that's really frustrating, was when an artist, and Jenny and I have talked about this a lot, like an artist might come up with their own technique, like a new way of doing something, and it might not be documented anywhere. And some people become very, guarded about not wanting to share their technique with others. I have respect for those artists that do share their technique and want others, to try and experiment with that technique and use it themselves. They're not sort of sitting there going, I'm holding on to it, jealously, not letting anyone else, or territorially not allowing anyone else to try that new technique. I think that, share it with others, and then they can try it and do amazing work with it. And then it's like getting out there. Why hold on to something so tight to the chest that you're not letting anyone else,
Exactly.
It's like people that go, I'm going to take that, that recipe to the grave. They've got this recipe and they're like, everyone loves it, and they're like, no, I'm taking that to the grave. I don't get that. I'm like, I'd rather share that with others and be like, yeah, this is my recipe, here you go. If I know anything that someone else doesn't know, I get asked by people sometimes in my work, I have, sometimes students or people trying to enter the profession ask me, how do you get in? And I'm always giving them the time of day, because I think, honestly, it's karma. It's good karma.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
If you support other people, that good karma comes back to you in a good way, I think.
Yeah.
It's a rewarding thing to do.
Yeah, and when you were saying that you talk about inspiring each other and and all that sort of thing, it actually reminded me of the relationship between which this is going to be a very interesting thing for people who are listening, who are comic book fans, which a lot of people I always find very interesting don't realize this, but the creator of Marvel, one of the creators of Marvel, Stan Lee, to one of the creators of Batman, which was Bob Kane, where everyone's like this whole
almost
wars
like
between But those two, when they were both alive, were actually really good friends. Like, they would, like, I've seen episodes where they've been talking, like, pretty much, like, on podcasts where they're talking about what they do and all that sort of thing. And then, when Bob Kane passed away, Stanley attended his funeral.
Yeah.
And there was, in Stanley's documentary, comic documentary, he was personally asked by DC to create his own comic book series in DC when he was working for Marvel, and which is really funny because like a lot of people don't realize that. And I think it was called like this Stan Lee stories and all that sort of thing. But it's really interesting when like that, like when people think about like those whole wars between those two comic book
companies,
and then it's like when you actually read about it, and it's like, well, actually these two were really good friends, and they always encouraged each other, and
wonderful.
They always learned, and and it was just.
I wonder if they had a healthy competition, which meant them strive for more, better things.
From what it looked like, I think they did. Like they
a mutual respect that actually drove them to excel at what they were doing. Because
absolutely, and I think that definitely did show in what they did, and like creating more characters, and like I think. It was really interesting.
A beneficial relationship.
I think it was.
It's interesting because you might think, there's this kind of, competitiveness between the companies in terms of probably market share or whatever, reaching audiences and kind of creating this kind of, almost like battle between the two. but it's lovely to think that behind the scenes, there's artists that are actually working together and on opposite sides of, could be competitors are actually working together, thinking, or not together, but being friends and sort of learning from each other. I think that's beautiful. Like,
it's amazing.
I love hearing those sorts of, I really do love hearing about those friendships. I think you are attracted, like friendships can, you can be friends with lots of different types of people in your life. I think the long-term friendships, the thing that I'm talking about this topic, it made me kind of look things up, but there's been some really, Paul Gauguin and Vincent van Gogh, 63 days together, but quite a famous interaction. But there have been friendships that have lasted the test of time. Like I was looking up a little bit about Yayo Kusama, who's a Japanese artist. She's the one that's famous for doing those amazing installation works and has become really huge on Instagram because her works are, you can be engulfed by her works, these amazing kind of spaces. People, apparently she's one of the top artists for people wanting to take selfies within her works or near her works or in front of her works. But she's really interesting because she was friends with Donald Judd. So people who don't know Donald Judd, he was a minimalist artist, and they met in the late 1950s in New York when Donald Judd just started as an artist. So and then they had a really sweet friendship, and it was really sweet. I think Yayoi was living in an apartment in a loft in New York, and told Donald Judd that there's an apartment like a couple of levels up free, and he ended up living there for 10 years, and they were neighbours. And it's cool. So sweet. They collaborated on sculptures, like they created works together during their friend, when they were living as neighbours and friends. Then Yayoi, she went back to Japan, and it's really sweet. Their friendship continued, and Donald Judd passed away in 1994, and they were corresponding all that time, like writing letters to each other. And then in so lovely. I love this story. 1978, Donald Judd went to Japan and visited Yayoi, and there's this really sweet letter. I just want to quote this letter.
Yeah, go for it.
So Yayoi sent a letter to Donald Judd in 1978 after he returned home to America, and she said, "The thing that delighted me most was to see that you had become a truly mature and profound artist."
Oh,
I just think that's so beautiful. Like, because you can have those really long-standing friendships, and when you understand they're both artists and they matured and they went, their art was quite different. When you look up their art, it's quite different, but they had this gorgeous friendship that really did last, you know,
the test of time.
Exactly. You know, they were friends for a long time. He passed away in 94. Then, you know, they became friends in the late 50s. So that's a long friendship. And I just hope that I could have, you know, when I get to the end of my life, I hope that I can look back and think, yeah, I had these really beautiful friendships. That's the thing that's the most important thing in my world is it's not me getting ahead of someone else. It's not money.
Yeah.
It's nothing like that. To me, I want to just be, you know, getting a bit morbid, thinking about being on my deathbed and just think, I have no regrets. All the people that I've been surrounded by, all the friends I've had over all this time. Yeah. I'm so grateful for those friendships. And absolutely. It's the best thing. We were talking about Jenny before. Yeah. Jenny's so sweet. She's like, she said, because she was trying to look for a life drawing group, and you know, she wasn't on Facebook at the time, so she was finding it difficult to discover life drawing groups in Melbourne. Yes. This was a few years ago. And then a friend told her about Dr. Sketchies, and she came along. And I remember when she came along, and I met her and we started talking. And then through that, she kind of I think she sort of started coming along and then heard about when Jean-Luc started his life drawing. It was called Abbotsford Life Drawing to start with, and then it's changed to Top Secret Life Drawing. And it was so sweet. She said, you know, in the last, say, because I've met Jen maybe 3 years ago now, I think. Yeah. She said that, you know, it's amazing how much of a change it makes to be, you know, to meet artists and to be part of a really healthy community and a really beautiful, welcoming community. Absolutely. And how it makes the world of difference. Like, being part of a group that everyone's supporting each other, you know, encouraging each other, you know, really, you know, giving good feedback about their work, each other's work, or also giving, you know, sometimes you need some feedback in terms of like, how could I do something, you know, I need to get to the next stage, like I'm kind of wanting to evolve or something. When you're surrounded by other artists, they can give you that feedback, like that healthy, like, what have you tried doing this? Like, kind of, you know, what about this? Just to, you know, not necessarily saying you have to do it my way, but I think sometimes you just need to be around people that understand, like not, and sometimes non kind of creative type people might not. Sometimes non-creative people can have awesome ideas. I'm not saying that, but sometimes I think often being around other artists, they can think, they can give you a bit of a, oh, maybe try this, you know, give this a try, because they understand the technical or the materials and medium. They've studied art, they understand. Like, I'm sure you've probably had photographers where you've thought, like, have you ever thought, as a photographer, for example, I don't know how to do, like, I've got this idea, but I'm not sure how to do it. Have you ever come to another photographer and said, can you? Oh, and it's amazing what of a difference it makes, hey?
I've got, like, a photographer friend who I see every so often when I can, obviously, you know, when we're not in lockdown or that sort of thing, but then you know, she's incredibly busy as well, and you know, like, I would have these times where I go to her and I'm like, hey, you know, I had this idea in mind, what do you think, you know? And she would say, oh yeah, no, that maybe you can try doing this, you know, and all that sort of thing. And I think I'm glad that I have people that I can go to, like, that sort of thing. And you know, I wanted to actually also say that the comment where you said that, you know, you can, where one of the most special things that can happen when you have artists who are friends, that when you see their work blossom, like my mate Corey, who was in the episode where we were talking about stereotypes, and we, you know, we've been friends for now nearly 10 years, and because he's a furry artist himself, and you know, I think one of the coolest things for me was to see how, just to watch him grow as a furry artist from like what his style was then to what his style is now. And I think that's definitely something that's so very beautiful. Special and just like,
it's beautiful to witness, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And it's like just supporting him in that, you know, and I think it's just so important, like, and you know, always encouraging him, you know, and like, I think that's just
seeing the work grow over that time, because people, I agree, like, that's one of the most beautiful thing about being friends with someone creative. You see them blossom over time, because people definitely develop and grow as, you know, being an artist is something you're learning every day. You're changing, you know, you're growing as a person as well, and it reflects in your work. I think I 100% understand what you're saying, because, you know, like talking about Lily again, we went to uni together, so we're students, and then that's very early on, and then seeing each other now, and just seeing Lily, in that time. I think we've been friends for over 15 years. I think I'm trying to work it out.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much you can see someone has really developed in their work, and it's so awe-inspiring to watch and witness,
absolutely.
And it's lovely. It's like from my point of view, I get so much out of seeing other people's work grow over time, and sometimes it might be a short period of time. You can see someone's work develop over a year, or over 10 years, and then if you're like thinking of people like that have had friendships over decades, and how, I love what Yayo was saying, that I love that you've matured into an artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just from
There's
someone
special
that's
right
gorgeous,
there.
isn't it? Like that is you can't put. That is the most sweetest thing I can ever. That line in that letter must have meant so much to receive those words. Like that would have been so touching, because their friendship,
absolutely.
had spanned
It's a work
lot
of
time.
art.
That's it. It's a work of just to share those feelings as well. I think that's something beautiful about correspondence. Like, but as an archivist, I see it. I love seeing those kind of like the relationships that grow over time, and you can sometimes see it through letters, like over.
Because you would have a lot of letters that you would see.
I have seen that. Yeah, and it's lovely to see. I've had these beautiful moments where because I feel like a bit of a voyeur reading people's personal letters.
Yeah.
At over say 20 years or 30 years of friendship, I have read letters going through seeing a relationship bloom over time. I've seen it through correspondence, and it's such a gorgeous thing to witness.
It would be I think it's and I think, as I said, I always try and tell people that supporting each other is so important. Because there is so much competitiveness and all that sort of thing, but
negativity.
And so I think for me, and that's why for me as a model, said for me twice, that's always great. Just count that on the video. I always like to when I post for my modeling work, I always love to feature as many artists as I can, because it's like, as you said, it's a chain reaction. I think we were talking about this.
Good karma comes back at you.
Yeah, we were talking before we were recording, where it's the chain reaction of for example, I could share an artist's work, and then another artist that follows me, or another model that follows me, will be like, oh my gosh, that is so cool. And then that model could contact that artist, and then it starts this whole chain reaction. And as you said with Lily, she said that she couldn't do a project, so she passed it on to someone else. That
I think that's beautiful.
And it's not like,
I love hearing those sorts of stories where they're like, I can't do this, or it's not really my style, but I think they think of a friend and then kind of pass that on, because it's a hard world we live in, and we've talked about this, like being an artist or being a self-employed artist is a difficult profession, and you need each other. You need to support each other. Like, artists need to support each other, because honestly, it's tough enough out there for people,
and it's none of that petty stuff, like if they get asked and they say they can't do it, and then
they don't think of anyone else,
they're just like, no one else deserves it.
I don't know anyone else.
It's only me. It's only me that gets asked.
Well, that comes back to you, like, it does come, if you get good karma, and the thing is, it leaves a lasting impression on the person that you're helping. Like, if you pass on a good word to someone else, and they get work from that person will think, oh, if I'm too busy to do something, they'll think of that other person. It's like you said, it's a chain reaction. It keeps good karma comes back to you in droves, honestly.
Absolutely.
And you'll get a reputation, and we've talked about this, your reputation is all that you have, honestly.
Oh, absolutely.
And it can be taken away in a heartbeat, and it takes a lot of work to build a good reputation.
Years to build it, but seconds to destroy.
Exactly. So we need to, I think people need to work harder on, I believe, on thinking about their values as a person and how they work, absolutely. And being professional, and their interactions with people, because honestly, it's a small world in Melbourne. Like, most creatives end up knowing each other at some point, and it's how we've talked about this, like mutual friends that we know, like Francis. We're talking about Francis, photographer. I hope you're listening, Francis. And it's weird, you meet each other through other things and then you're like, oh, do you know Francis? And you sort of work it out through, sometimes you work it out through social media. If you're like, you've liked the same thing or something, you're like, oh, you know Francis as well. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But it's a lovely thing. It's like I was talking to Jen about, Jen and I know Donna, and we met each other separately, and it's sort of weird how you kind of work it. It's like that triangulation or that community. It's such a small community. And you have to be so careful not to burn bridges, but look after each other, because we are in a small community and we need to raise each other up and we need to support each other.
Absolutely, and I think it's so important.
Rant over.
No, done. But no, 100% agree with you, and I think it's so important, and it doesn't just come from like obviously the emotional support, but it's also the support of like
building friendships,
friendships,
lasting
sharing,
relationships,
not being afraid to share people's works, because I feel like I do come across, I think for me sometimes I do come across people who I don't think they realize what it actually means to share someone's like work of themselves, like like people would probably think going like, oh well, I mean, it's not a big deal, and it's like, well, actually it actually can go a long way. Like it can really, like, for example, and I always love to use this example, but back in 2018 when I was a starting photographer, I had the amazing opportunity to work with a model who came all the way from America, and I sent the photos through, and she kindly shared one of the photos from that photo shoot. But because of that, I then started getting a following in the US. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because she would have a huge network of people she knows.
And so now I've got a following in the US, in Canada, and you know what I mean? But
it makes a huge impact, doesn't it?
Yeah, just that one thing, and it's like you just never know what.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like I try to do it. I try to do it as much as I can. I think social media, I try to use it as a force of good if I can. But I know, there's a lot of negativity. Like we were talking about trolls before we started recording and
good
things
old
online.
Trolls.
But there's a lot of crappy things that happen on the internet. But there's also a good side of social media where you can support other artists by sharing their work or liking them or following them, or commenting and giving them some great feedback. Because sometimes I look at, there's a lot of people that lurk online, and I like, if I see something that I like, I try to tell the person.
Absolutely, same here.
I can't do it all the time because there's so many things I like. I might just like it. But, I like everything, sending lots of love out the world. But I think, if I've thought of something, I thought, I really, that artwork blows me away, I'll try to write a comment to say, I really appreciate what you've done. I love the colours, or I'll try and say something meaningful that the artist, because I know when someone says that to me, it makes my heart swell, honestly.
Oh, it does.
It makes and it really encourages me to continue on, because there's been times when I haven't had the confidence with my art, but I've always enjoyed doing it, and nothing has stopped me. Nothing will stop me doing what I do. But
exactly. Yeah.
I just think when someone encourages me by saying something positive, it makes a huge impact. It really, anyone that's ever commented, I really appreciate it. Thank you for the love. It really makes a huge difference to me.
Yeah, same here. And I recently on one of the episodes of the Creators Process, I had a comment show up from a viewer, and they pretty much said, they were, I can't remember exactly how they put it, but they pretty much were like, I just came across your channel by just some cosmic random, they explain it as a cosmic random, but I'm so glad that I came across it, and and so they ended up subscribing and all that sort of thing. That's and I'm lovely. Just like, but doesn't that make all, because it's a lot of work you put in there, because what you've done with the Creators Process over a year, and it's been a year, you've done a lot of hard work. That must mean a lot to hear, get that beautiful feedback. I think, and this is why I'm really passionate about this topic, because, for me, the Creators Process, and every time I talk about the Creators Process, I always say to people, this is not just my channel. This is everyone's channel. This is everyone's safe space to talk about what they do, you know, and to talk about their process as an artist, as a musician, you know, etc., etc.
Yeah. You're giving them a voice for sometimes for
Yeah.
people that don't have a voice elsewhere. Like,
Exactly.
I think that's a beautiful thing.
And that's it, you know, and like, you know, take, for example, our friendship. Like, we met nearly 2 years ago at Abbotsford.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when I started doing these episodes, you know, one of the people I came to is you, because I always loved your work, the work that you did of myself, and then the one that you did of myself and John. I was like, yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
And then when we had our creative process talk, you know, which I really loved, you know, we went very in depth talking about so many different topics. And then when I had this idea of this podcast series, I couldn't think of anyone else that I wanted to do this podcast series with. And so I was just like, that's when I messaged you saying, can we please meet up? And, you know,
that was so lovely.
Yeah. Cause I felt like it wasn't something that I wanted to do over a message. I felt like it was something.
It's nice to talk about it in person.
Yeah.
And I'm so can I just say, I don't know if I've said this to you, but thank you, because I've been wanting to do, I've had people say to me for years, I'm not kidding, that I should do a podcast or I should be on the radio talking because I just love talking.
Oh yeah, no, I know what you mean.
It was so nice because I've never actually gone ahead and done it. Like, I've never, you know, taken that step. And because you really encouraged me by saying, would you like to do this together? And I was just so blown away that you wanted to do that with me.
Oh.
And I've got so much out of it. Like, I haven't talked about art in this much depth for a long time, because I studied art history at uni many years ago. And I've always had, like, I'm surrounded by art books. So I've always talked about art. But the way we're, you know, going into these long format podcasts, you know, episodes that go for over an hour, and the topics that we have planned in the future, I'm really excited about.
Oh, same, yeah.
And all the people we're going to interview, like, it's really igniting that passion that was already there. It's just renewing it. It's like a rebirth of that passion that I'm talking about artists that I haven't spoken about for a while. You know, in my day job is quite different. I'm, you know, working in Melbourne Museum, which is, you know, I'm talking about lots of different personalities, but I'm not talking about the artists that I love and have inspired me from day one, since, you know, the first time I even thought about art. So, thank you, Jayden.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. Like I said, you know, thank you for making that impact on me, because if it wasn't for, if it wasn't for our really great conversation we had on the creative process, you know, I would have not asked. You know what I mean? Because I loved that.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, like, and to be honest, I have you to thank for that, because I don't know if I actually told you this, but that conversation that we had for the creative process actually birthed this podcast series. So I have to thank you for that, because if it wasn't for that, this series wouldn't exist right now.
It was a great conversation, because we're really talking about, you know, I think this is a theme throughout all of the episodes so far that we've recorded for this series, has been about how artists make us feel in lots of different ways. And, you know, I think that's what, you know, supporting each other, to me, it's about being a genuine human and supporting fellow artists, like raising each other up, championing each other, you know, not getting all competitive and jealous of each other's, you know, successes. Rather, you know, I just celebrate each other. And that's, I think being selfless and loving what other people do and supporting others is such a good way to be as a human. You're going to have a better life, I think, you know, as a result. So I think it's a better way to go about being a human.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, like, I think lately, you know, in life, we spend so much time, you know, sometimes worrying about too much on the negative stuff and all that sort of thing.
People can become really negative, honestly.
And it's very draining. Like, you know, like, I think for me, realizing that only just recently, going, man, I'm so exhausted. And I, like, think to myself, why is that? And I'm like, oh, well, it's because I'm focusing so much on so much negative stuff, and it is really,
it takes you down. Like,
it does.
Anyone that's like listening, if this is triggering, you know, talking about depression, anxiety can be sometimes triggering, and I think we also live in a stressful time during a pandemic, can be very anxious and stressful. But then, there's a lot of places that you can go for help, and we'll share that, Beyond Blue, and there's like a million different amazing Lifeline. They do such good work. But the reason I mention that is because I think if you are around lots of negative people, if you surround yourself with negative people and you become really negative, it can manifest in the way your mental health can go downhill. And I know that from personal experience in the past. As soon as I kind of cut ties with the people that have been negative in my life, it's amazing. And I actually went and sought help in my mid-20s and spoke to a counsellor for a period of time. And the way it shifted the way I was seeing the world, I'll be forever thankful to that counsellor, because trying to have a more positive outlook on life, it's meant that the depression that I kind of lived with on a daily basis kind of has really been more manageable in the time since I've changed the way I see things. And I know it's even like I was reading something about being observant about the beautiful things around you. Like if you take the time to look around you, I think I was reading an article about citizen scientists, and this was a really gorgeous thing about this man. I think he was a train driver, and he loves, in his spare time, he's a photographer, and he goes out and takes photographs in nature, and he likes documenting, and he's found through his kind of observations and photography, he's actually discovered multiple species like unknown to science, because he's taken the time. And he's like, since he started doing it, he says, it's a really cute quote that he was saying, that he looks down, like he looks at his feet, so he's looking at insects, and he looks up. And I think that was a beautiful thing. Like if you become more observant and positive and see things, you see magic all around you, basically. If you have that outlook, it's the thing of taking the time, listening, being observant, being mindful. It's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And it's just focusing on the good stuff, and, I think celebrating each other's success of what not putting each other down for it. Like, I think... it
attracts good things too. Like if you're a good positive person, you attract other, people want to spend time with you. Right? If you're a negative person that pulls other people down,
I think a lot of people would want to be around that.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess like we said, that perfect example with Van Gogh and
Van Gogh and Vincent van Gogh. Vincent van Gogh and Paul Gauguin's relationship is so fascinating. I think it was a tumultuous 63 days that they spent together, and it's sort of sad in a way, but it's also, they created amazing work in that time, like artwork. So I mean, sometimes that kind of tumultuous, intense type of friendships can create incredible art, but it can be very detrimental on the person.
Stressful on the people who it's...
We know, Paul Gauguin, and finding his friend in bed with like bloody sheets must have been terrifying. Like that would have been scary, and that was a couple of days before Christmas. I think he ended up contacting Theo, and Theo came and looked after Van Gogh, thank goodness. But I just find that friendship is so fascinating, honestly.
It's very different.
It's an interesting friendship, and it just shows that sometimes artists can be very intense people. They can be very passionate. They're very sensitive people. They can have mental health issues, of course. And it just shows how important it is that we do support each other, because, having good people around you can really help you go through those hard, difficult times as well.
Absolutely. No, I think it's just such an important thing that we should keep going, with supporting and lifting each other up and not pushing each other down, because at the end of the day, it doesn't help anyone. No. And, I think any people who are listening right now, like if you're an artist or if you're a photographer or a model, etc., don't be afraid to,
reach out.
Yeah, reach out and, to respond to people, going like, if someone's asked you going, hey, I really love your work, can you give me some advice on that? Don't be afraid of sharing that insight, because, it helps,
it helps
build
others, emerging people.
Build up people with, learning
and developing and
like, it was really interesting because, like, in one of the episodes I was talking to a burlesque performer and we were talking about the Melbourne Comedy Festival, and because of, obviously because of COVID this year, they couldn't have a lot of international guests. Yeah. But one of the good things that came out of it, she said that she had friends who were performing that actually could add more shows.
Oh, wow.
Because
they're local artists.
And it actually helped bring out more of the local community and support, so it was actually awesome to see that,
there's some positives of,
like that the community was supporting local artists, and I think that's just amazing, and that just goes to show what happens when people get together and go, let's there's a lot more local performers coming into the area. Let's actually see
give them opportunities as well.
Not just give it to all the international and all that sort of thing, which obviously nothing against international guests. But
also we need to support our local community, I think.
Exactly.
Really important. Like, I 100% agree with you. I started reading this article about artists during lockdown that it was saying that having less kind of distractions and things of being at home and kind of focusing on their art was beneficial for them. I mean, I know that this is not always the case for all artists, because depends on where your muse comes from. Like, maybe you need to leave the house and see people and being amongst lots of people to feel inspired to create art. But other people might find the sort of the solitude or the focus and being at home and having less distractions actually can be good for their work.
Yes.
So it's really interesting just thinking about how we can support. I 100% agree with you. We need to think more about supporting our local artists. Think about our major institutions, like, I won't say names, that often will focus on getting the big masters exhibitions from overseas, and then that's their big blockbuster exhibition.
Yeah.
I think we need to do more work, and I think this is changing in Australia, hopefully. I think we need to do more work to support emerging and local current artists that are kind of struggling, and especially during COVID, there's a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people been with the comedy festival, for example. Yeah. They had to cancel a lot of in-person kind of events and things like that. During the last year, there's a lot of musicians have lost work because there's less live performances.
Yes.
So all these things, like, we need to do more work in the coming years to support these people that have really it's been a real hard 12 months. Yeah. So, yeah.
But no, there should be like a new art exhibition called In Our Own Backyard, like, where it's like all local artists,
Let's just get up and support them.
Any oh gosh, I'm having a mind blank. Art,
like gallery managers or
managers listening.
Curators.
Yeah, curator. That's the word I was trying to think of. I was like, what was that word again? But yeah, any curators listening.
Yeah. Come on, this is an idea.
We have given you our permission to use that as a possible art gallery exhibition.
That would be fantastic. I would come to that.
I would go to that as well. Yeah. I'd be like, love to see.
I love seeing that. Creators. I love those exhibitions where, like, there's like, triennials or big festivals or art festivals where it's about supporting the region, like, the Australasia region, for example, where you just see work from the Asia Pacific or Southeast Asia or across Australia from different regions, not just from the big cities. Like, I'm talking about supporting artists from all across the nation. Absolutely. I love seeing those sorts of events, and I hope to see more of that in the future, because we definitely, I think, it's a sad thing in Australia that often you'll see it in the film industry as well, that we put more onus on things coming from other countries and supporting that, which is, I have nothing against that, but I think we also need to think about, homegrown talent and supporting that as well.
Because there are some amazing people. Like, there's some amazing...
Oh, God, yeah. We're so fortunate. We've got so much talent in this country.
But, no, I agree with you. We should definitely try and focus on supporting our local talent as well as international. Yeah, let's make it happen.
And, like our independent kind of makers, like independent filmmakers, musicians that are just struggling to make a living, artists and writers, and all these amazing creative people. We need to really give as much support to them as we can. I know through lockdown there was a lot of people that were trying to support local businesses because it was, you know, really a tough time. Let's like extend that to like really think about our creatives that sometimes get forgotten. But what they do is so vital for our society. Like, can you imagine a life without music or art or books or comic books or film? We couldn't live without these, you know, amazing creative people that are making these beautiful things that we enjoy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? I'm gonna leave the this to our listeners. Like, I've got a bit of a challenge for people who are listening. In the comments below, I want you to list some local artists, if it's like, you know,
like Instagram or their website or something,
so that we can
follow them.
Yeah, so we can follow them, we can promote them, because, you know, like, I think that would be a good way of, you know, let's
positive
start
way to end the
let's
episode. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's just start that trend. Let's not just start tomorrow. Let's not start in a week. Let's just start right now.
Let's start right now. Do it. Like, add some comments, because I bet you'll come up with people that we haven't heard of.
Oh, yeah,
and we
absolutely.
will be, you know, it's forever thankful, because, you know, how often I love going into those kind of wormholes sometimes through Instagram, where you find like a group and they're like sharing other people's work, and then you're like, oh, I didn't know about this person, and then it's like you go down a whole rabbit hole.
A rabbit hole of their work.
Like, I love it. So please share.
Absolutely.
You know, your favorite artist or your favorite local musician or someone that you really respect, and we can give them some love on shout outs, and follow them on Instagram or their website. It'd be great.
That's it. And if you want to support myself or Nik's work, like we always leave our links in the description. So, you know, Instagram, our websites, everything like that.
Yeah.
You know, our communities that we follow and all that. And obviously, if you want to support our podcast series, you know, there's a subscribe button, you know.
Yeah, give us some love. You know, it means a lot to us. Thank you.
You know, to support what we do, you know, as we've said before, like, we love doing this. This is something that we're very passionate about, talking about the art community and all that sort of thing, and having the conversation, because as Jenny said, you know, once it stops, that's where it's that's it.
If we're not sharing what we do, and if we're not learning from each other, it ceases to exist, really.
Well, that's it. You know, that's it.
And the whole art thing would end.
Oh yeah, the trend would just stop, just dead in its track.
That's right.
And that's it. And but yeah, like, first of all, thank you so much for everyone. Still listening.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
And thank you for those that have subscribed or are thinking about subscribing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. It means a lot to us.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, for people who are commenting, for liking, who are messaging us on our socials, thank you. Like, just your support means so much.
It does.
To us. And it's just, you know, we love doing this, and, you know, we want to keep going with this series. So, keep sharing it, and, you know, share our podcast. You know, go check out the creative process as well.
Yeah,
you know.
give it some love.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will see you in the next episode.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.